Hello again and welcome to our fourth and final session of RSM's Sydney Office Business and Finance Symposium webinar series. My name is Pat Flanagan. I'm a partner and director in the Sydney office of RSM, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. The central theme of the symposium series has been understanding the changing and elevated customer experience requirements for businesses to succeed, amplified in this current COVID environment that we're now all existing in. Firstly, just some housekeeping for today. The webinar is being recorded and will be sent to all attendees later in the week. The webinar will also be available on the RSM Sydney website, along with indeed the previous three webinars that were part of this series. They've been fantastic presentations, and I encourage you to have a look at those because without equivocation, they make for first-class viewing. We'll also encourage you today to take part in the discussion. Laurel, who's our presenter today, will be asking some questions and we'll be utilising the poll facility, so I encourage you to use that. Also, for any specific questions, you'll have the opportunity to type in to the Q&A box during the course of the discussion, and we'll address as many of those questions as we can towards the end of the session. A little bit about our speaker. Laurel Gray is a member of RSM's Digital Services Group. She's a specialist who works with business owners to essentially examine and identify their technology needs and determine implementation strategies. Laurel's been doing this for many years now, and she's worked with a wide array of businesses, from very small paper-based businesses that are just starting out right through to multinational corporations who are looking to streamline processes and understand and interpret data through integrated dashboards. And so she has a lot of fantastic experience in this space. The topic today is about, and in fact it's consistent with the theme that we've had throughout the webinar series, is that understanding the importance and the value of CX and why it needs to be a critical aspect of your business. There's a strong argument, clearly, that it's always been the case, but in this environment, it's ever more so. So Laurel's session today will look at the ways in which you can examine and enhance your client's customer experience through digital transformation. She will be covering during the session an understanding of what is digital transformation. That is, what are the key drivers? How do businesses approach a digital transformation? She'll also be looking at a framework in which clients can adopt in order to undergo that transformation effectively. And then finally, Laurel will wrap up with some examples of successful digital transformation, including some case studies. So with not much further ado, Laurel, I'll hand over to you for your presentation. Thanks.
There we go. Sorry about that, everyone. Hello, and thank you so much for taking your lunchtime here with us today. And thank you to Pat for the great introduction. As he mentioned, I'm here today to talk to everyone about digital transformation and customer experience trends. And my aim for today is to do my best to make this as practical as possible so that you get some real life examples and you can take back some ideas to your business that you can hopefully implement straight away. Secondarily, the idea behind this presentation is to get you to get rid of any existing doubt that you might have around your organizations or your own capability around digital transformation. And I'm going to share with you some very practical ways that you can do that and move ahead. So there we go. I'll just start off by saying that there are so many customer experience trends around technology that are happening in the marketplace. Everything from creating your own custom branded app. You're seeing that a lot in the retail and e-commerce space, to creating adaptive approaches to customer experience, loyalty program engagement, virtual and augmented reality customer service, and a lot more focusing on mobile experience, of course. But there's no way in this session that we're going to be able to cover off on all of that. So I've decided let's hone in and focus specifically on how we can digitize the customer experience in your business. So what's different? I'm not going to dive into everything that's happened this year, and I'm going to do my best to keep it really positive on this session. What's different now is that we've got a distributed workforce and teams. Customers are finding you and they're engaging with you completely online now. And we're living in a world where face-to-face interaction a lot of times is just not possible. So it's got to be that way. The expectation that your service can be delivered directly to your customer's home is prevalent. So customers expect that they can buy from you and never leave their home. And they're going to get that complete service and product delivery. There's an opportunity now for you to educate on how you do digital directly to your clients or your customers. And there's that expectation now that businesses must also provide new tools, training, and support in order to enable their employees to deliver that outstanding customer experience. And Katya actually delivered a session on that last week. So if you are curious about that delivery of a superior customer experience, definitely go check out that session. So all of that is great. We know that there have been changes that have happened this year, but what specifically do you need to change? Well, you can only change yourself, really, can't you? And that's to stop thinking that great technology is only for tech-focused businesses or businesses that are further along in the cloud technology adoption process or digital transformation process. Your business is now digital. You are now digital. Pat is who introduced us. He is a partner that doesn't necessarily love technology, and he's even now digital, right? We're all taking great strides. So what is digital transformation in general? Let's just set the tone here. All digital transformation is the way that a business adopts new technology in order to better improve their internal systems or processes or improve their customer experience and the way that their teams work to deliver that experience and product and service to customers. Ideally, in a perfect world, we know that there would be a strategy or a roadmap in place. We know that that strategy would then be executed in phases over time, would be led by a project team, both internally and externally. You'd have your risks mitigated. You'd have everything planned out to the T. And it would involve extensive change management and training to educate your staff and customers. Okay, so what we know is that we don't have that luxury now. We've all got to dive in and do our best to deliver something that works for us and works for our customers, and maybe isn't perfect, but is something. So how most businesses approach digital transformation generally, so outside of this year's experience, is often including a lot of pitfalls. I just wanted to cover off on that before we jump in. There's often too much focus on the sales area of the framework from leadership. And what I mean by that is when businesses think about customer experience, they think, wow, we've got to really wow them during that sales process, and they forget about the actual delivery component. Businesses often buy software that talks about customer experience on the sales page. And by that, I mean, they often will start Googling, great software for customer experience, and they end up with customer relationship management systems, email marketing systems, and it all becomes too focused on internal change within the business and not enough on how they can actually deliver a great product or service to their customer. Businesses, sadly, they forget to ask their customers what they think, or they copy a competitor, and whether that's the technology that the competitor has adopted or the strategy, and they forget to think about their own unique requirements, and they get too caught up in that comparison. And also they do tend to forget to include teams in the process and keep them in the loop. So in this presentation, I'm going to walk you through some really critical ways that you can avoid all of these pitfalls by following a little bit more of a straightforward framework. Okay, some other reasons why digital transformations fail. At times, it can be really difficult to get stakeholder engagement at the right level. The decision makers that sit on the boards can be hard to get in touch with. And if you're a person in an organization who holds a customer-facing role or an operational role, it can be hard to know how to communicate that directly to that person at a higher level. And that includes writing the business case. So just because you have the idea doesn't mean that you necessarily know how to convey it to the person that you're getting buy-in from, who is often going to expect that there is a complete business case, a return on investment involved, And maybe you're just not sure how to create that type of argument. Maybe you've had this one happen to you. The person who owns the existing system or the process in your business potentially will be offended if you tell them that it needs to be digitized. Yeah, I'm sure you've had that experience before. There could potentially not be enough clarity around the goals. We're going to cover off on that, as well as a lack of competitive analysis or benchmarking around not necessarily what's happening now, but the future predictions within your industry. And lastly, the biggest one that we see is digitizing way too fast. Now, that sounds a little bit funny that I've put that in bold there, because what I'm basically saying is that you have to digitize fast now. But what I'm trying to say in this presentation is that there is a methodology and a framework that you can approach to digitize quickly and still get the outcome that you want. And that's what I'm going to share. So customer experience, digital transformation. Instead of sharing with you what are the steps to completing the perfect digital transformation process, let's look at this from a different angle and look at the 5 different areas that we often see businesses apply the customer experience to when they're doing change transformation or digital transformation. The first one that we see is obviously financials. We're an accounting firm primarily. Collaboration, so how people within the organization collaborate together and also collaborate with customers. Operations, how you deliver your product and service effectively on a day-to-day basis. Sales, re-engaging with existing customers or winning over new customers. And productivity, which is essentially how you tie all of those systems together in order to reduce double handling and also help your employees to solve problems faster. So what we're going to look at across the rest of this presentation is how you can actually apply these functional areas to part of your plan that you take back with you after this session. So before we do that, I'm curious, when you're making decisions about selecting new business software or solutions to address customer problems, what's most important to you at the moment? Is it customer feedback, market trends, industry best practice, the highest paid customer's opinion, extensive data reporting, so meaning you're relying on a lot of existing data in order to make that decision, or gut feeling? And the poll should have popped up on your screen. So what's the most important driver that you think you personally use or your business uses? I'm not sure if we have to get everyone's feedback on this. Great. This is excellent. So I hope the poll stays over the screen. Basically, this is in alignment with, a poll that was done by Hotjar, which is a website overlay tool that allows you to see how your customers utilize your website. So customer feedback is extremely important, as is industry best practice. Those two are absolutely huge. Market trends does play a big part as well, and probably lesser so is the highest paid customer's opinion, extensive data reporting, and gut feeling. Now, given the fact that we have got to have decisions that are made quickly now, part of what the process today is I want you to let go of feeling like you have to do a lot of extensive research or go too far when you're determining the driver of your strategy. I know that usually your key stakeholders in your organization are going to be quizzing you and questioning you on this, but I want you to be strong. Pick one key driver, maybe one of the top 3 that you mentioned in that poll are the most important, and focus on that. So if you've got customer feedback there, make sure it's not just from one customer, but it's from a solid pool, and that you have some data to back up your decision, and then go from there. But don't worry about diving across multiple areas, is the point. So pick one key driver that you want to focus on, and when you're building your business case, build out based on that. All right, some other considerations as you're diving into a digital transformation at rapid speed. Another sort of framework that you can overlay here is, instead of just looking at the functional area, is you can consider the other elements that we talked about before. So your people, who have the biggest pain points within your organization, who can oversee the change management process, maybe who has got the biggest influence in your business. We all have those people who shout the loudest, and you can get them on your side. And who's there and can be a really great resource for educating your staff and your customers. Okay, so as you're building up your case, think about these factors. In terms of your processes, what's critical for compliance reasons or other reasons within your industry? And then what can actually be adapted to suit the flow of the software that you select? In terms of your offering, what's the easiest thing that you can move online or fully digitize? Is there perhaps a product that you have offered face-to-face, such as a specific training session or otherwise, that you can easily get some great video recordings of and offer as a fully digital product in a short period of time? Or is there a new offering that you could actually easily sell your customers that you haven't before? And then for your customers, how are they going to find out about your offering? How are they going to buy from you? And then how are they going to stay connected with you? So as you approach this, think about all four of these areas. They are interlocked. And as you start to ask yourself these questions, it's going to form which area you'll focus on most for your transformation. Your past here is not going to determine your future. So that's the other thing to let go of. This is the traditional technology adoption scale. And you always are going to have on the right-hand side your laggards, or what we call at RSM your ground zero, your cloud gazers, which are the late majority. And if you're sitting in that space, don't feel bad about it, because when you do rapid digital transformation, it doesn't actually matter where you start off, because the customer is only going to be interacting with the piece of technology or software that you put in front of them. They're not going to be understanding your entire business ecosystem and all the systems and processes that you might still be doing manually. So don't worry about it. You've got to let it go. Even if you consider yourself a cloudonaut and you're really ahead, remember that all that matters in this case when you want to engage and get an outcome with your customers is improving that one piece. And as we'll talk about soon, creating a great minimum viable product to do so. So I'm just curious from the group, more from my own knowledge, I've got to say, where do you feel that your business or your company sits on the adoption scale right now? So ground zero, meaning you're way behind, you have a lot to do. Cloudonaut means you're a complete innovator and you're ahead of your industry. All right. This is more for curiosity, right? Very interesting. So we have a couple of people across the entire board here, which is great. And many of you saying cloud gazer. I love that, because that's actually what we see as a general representation across the board in the clients that we work with and the prospects that we work with as well when we're analyzing problems. And the great part about that is that there's that amount of awareness there. So when you have the awareness of where you sit, then you're able to make an informed and intelligent decision about what you do next. All right, so don't worry about where you are, worry about what's next. Now, how are you going to get there? So before I jump into real life practical examples, how are you going to get your team aligned when foreseeably you haven't seen your team in a while? You haven't seen some of those stakeholders that you report into face-to-face in a while. So I just wanted to share with you just one concept because I know a lot of organizations are looking for just a place to start. A company called Asana, which is a project and task management system, ran this thing called the Anatomy of Work Index, which surveyed 10,000 workers. And they found that about 43% of people actually understood the overall mission and what was going on, let alone understanding how that overall mission played into their day-to-day work. Since you're working with people in a distributed workforce, you now have got to think about how are you going to communicate the change that you want to have across what's going to actually be executed and get people up to speed within a short period of time. So this software, Asana, this is the first software that I'm going to share with you today, basically allows you to set company goals that are then linked to portfolios, which are groups of projects that then have, as the image shows on the right-hand side, smaller projects built in with clear applicable due dates, people that are assigned specific projects and work, and different milestones to get them towards a goal. If you don't already have this type of system in your business for tracking projects and tasks that are not necessarily customer related, but are related to the internal projects that you have within your company, if you don't already have a system like this, consider how you can get a system, even if it's just in Excel, really, or just written out somewhere, where you can easily convey the mission, the objectives, the key results, and then the work that needs to happen to get things done. Because one thing that's really critical with digital transformation is making sure that your internal team is up to speed on what's happening and that they know how to execute their part, regardless of which area you decide to make change in. Now, as we're diving into the good stuff, and I promise I'm going to share a lot of great apps and tools with you very shortly, I want you to think about what your main objective is here. As you're sitting on this call, maybe you're having your lunch, what is it that you want to achieve with your customers right now? Do you want to deliver the most outstanding customer experience? Is this about an increase in revenue? Is this about an increase in satisfaction or a decrease in dissatisfaction, perhaps, as is often the case? Is this about becoming or remaining an industry leader or keeping customers coming back? What is it actually about for you? Maybe make a note somewhere. Because this mission or this goal is going to allow you to then set the key results in your transformation and then help you to work towards what a minimum viable product is to launch to your customers and launch internally within your organization. Now that you can adopt technology much faster, that means you can actually go to market, sign up for a free trial, or buy a SaaS or software as a solution service online for free or at a very low cost. You can integrate it back to whatever systems you've already got potentially at, again, a very low cost. You're able to go to market really fast with whatever it is that you decide that you want to do next in your business. And potentially you're able to launch that internally a lot quicker as well. So what I encourage you to do is think about how you can launch just a minimum viable product. And I'll even use today's webinar as an example. So one of the things that the amazing marketing team talked about as we were planning for this webinar is how can we create the most amount of engagement? And we talked about different ideas around apps that we could get to make it feel like a real symposium and do networking and sharing ideas and information. And all of that would be like an ideal world situation for replacing our face-to-face business finance symposium. It would have been amazing, but we didn't really have that luxury. So instead of trying to work towards a perfect situation, how can you launch what's a minimum viable product that's still going to get you to engage with your customers, provide something that's of value, and do it well? Don't get too caught up in all the details. The other thing that I will say as you head into things and making decisions about what you're going to do next is to arm yourself with as much existing data that you have. So go to the marketing person in your company and find out your Google Analytics and Google Search Console data. Google Analytics tracks your website traffic and Google Search Console tracks what people are searching for when they actually find your website. And your marketing team should have access to that. So arm yourself with the right data as well to work out what information and what sales data, what customer feedback data you already have, and see if you can work that into your business case as well. Now, let's jump into sharing some more practical ideas here. So you're probably thinking, how does this impact my customer? Across all those different areas, we have a variety of software solutions that you can just go to market and buy, and they'll help you to engage better directly with your customers. So I guess I'd like to find out from you, instead of me jumping in and talking about websites and e-commerce, CRMs, email marketing, the obvious stuff, what areas do you think your business needs to focus on? And I'll spend the next couple of minutes going through that. So financials, operations, collaboration, sales, productivity, tying it all together. Collaboration, interesting. I've got a lot of good ones there for you. Excellent. So financials a little bit probably outside of the realm of customer experience, although we've got some ideas here to share. Sales is a big one, and collaboration coming in at the largest. So what I'll do is I'll go through a couple of examples in each of the areas, but I'm going to really focus on the collaboration side. Awesome. So you're probably wondering, how do my financials actually impact my customer? And there are a couple of areas where we see huge traction with our clients. The first one is how they actually accept payment. So how do your customers want to pay you is the question. So many businesses still have outdated forms of payment. They either want to be transferred via VSB or an account number and it delays payments, or they're not offering the right payment terms for clients or whatever it is. When was the last time you actually asked your customers, how do you want to pay me? What works for you? Is it on the first of the month, at the end of the month, or would you actually like monthly payment instead of an annual payment to us, or whatever your scenario is? So there are some great tools. Stripe is a completely online gateway that accepts credit cards and debit cards at a very low fee, as is GoCardless, except GoCardless accepts just direct debits from a bank account. So essentially you can get these services online and running in less than a business day, and you can begin to collect payment from your customers online. And the best part is that these services integrate with your website, they can integrate with your accounting system, they can integrate with a point of sale system or whatever system you want to use essentially to collect sales. And not only that, but they also integrate with other systems that allow you to build recurring revenue into your business. I know that's sort of the hot topic with Netflix and Spotify, of course, but you can build recurring revenue into your own business in a way that really can suit your customers. And we've seen that with a winery that we worked with recently. They actually had completely manual methods for collecting payment from their wine club members, and we managed to move them online using a fully web-based recurring revenue platform. And it allowed them to free up all that time that they were using, literally typing in all the customer credit card numbers into their point of sales every month. And once they had that automated, they saved over, I think it was 30 hours a month of all that manual entry. And they were able to spend that time thinking about how they could better serve those wine club members and create amazing marketing offers that didn't cost them anything. And they ended up, I think it was quadrupling or more, I don't have the latest numbers, their online sales during the last couple of months because they were able to leverage on reaching out to their customers instead of just doing the regular administration. And their customers were also happier. They could go online, update their payment details, and they didn't have to make any phone calls. So that's just an example with financials. In terms of operations, I'll just touch on this one quickly. Think about how you can build in great customer support with your clients if you don't already. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can get amazing customer support software like Help Scout or Intercom or many, many more, where you're able to automate standard customer inquiries, automatically using artificial intelligence, create a knowledge base so that those common questions populate directly online. And instead of you having to reply to every question, you can just send them directly, or the software can even send an automated response directly to the customer, directing them to the answer once you start to build up replies. Think about how you can start to automate job and workflow management. Let's say you're a web development agency or a creative agency. This software, Pastel, allows you to install the software over a website or a visual, leave live feedback over it, and your customers can spend as much time as they want leaving this feedback, either by attaching images or writing text or recording a video. Once it's submitted to your team, it automatically will take all that feedback, put it into your project and task system, assign it to the most relevant team member, and the customer actually gets an updated draft straight away out of this system. So we've implemented this for a couple of web development agencies to great success. In terms of shipping, seems really obvious, but making sure that your website integrates back to the shipping method that you're using so that customers receive automatic updates. We're seeing a lot of customers where there's a big disconnect here, and they need to put this in as a stopgap measure so that the right SMS and email notifications go out to their customers. And just making these small tweaks so that customers can get answers quicker, they can be involved in the process, and they can stay updated on your product and service can make a huge difference to the customer experience. All right, let's dive into collaboration. Again, the way that you communicate with your customers it has got to be based on what they want. If a customer has made an appointment, or maybe they've submitted an online order, or I don't know, I'm thinking even in RSM's case, they're waiting for that tax return to come back, right? How many of us have been in that position where, oh, you can't wait for your job to be done and get your tax return back? One way that you can engage with customers is through two-way SMS, where customers are now always on their mobile phone. I won't even repeat the studies because it's too depressing. But by being able to send an SMS that doesn't allow you to just say yes or no, but actually allows the customer to re-engage with you and type in a question and get an immediate response, either back with your customer service desk or through another system, you'll be able to really wow customers and also be able to get live feedback where you wouldn't normally before. Another area where we're seeing customers, or our clients rather, adopt collaboration technology is through learning management. And there's software like Teachable that only takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to set up a new online course. And this is an opportunity, for example, if you're a business that needs to educate a customer about how to use your product or service, you can record those videos and have it all set up and passed over to the client. So I'll just go back and use the web development example again. When you hand over a website to a client, let's say, if you already have those pre-built training videos, you can hand it over to the client. You don't have to have that one-on-one session, and customers feel like they're getting additional value. So how can you further educate your customers about what you do? And lastly here is around document and file storage. And this is one that came up with a client recently because this particular client was trying to share, they had run these high-level courses with executives within this big training organization, and they'd wanted to share documents. So what they were doing, they were using Google products, and they were downloading all the videos and all the resources and customizing all the things for their client and uploading it to another service that the client was using. And finally, we said to them, wouldn't it just be easier if you asked them if they're okay to use the software that you use and collaborate with you directly? And that's the beauty of all these open products like Google and Microsoft products. They actually allow you to add in third parties into documents so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can share information and collaborate with your customers and clients in real time. I might just go on and touch on the other two areas, and then I'm going to leave lots of room for questions. So within the sales area, one great way to get customer engagement is to think about proposals and quotes and how you could potentially be a bit more engaging, no pun intended. One software, for example, is Practice Ignition, which works really well for professional services firms. And you can sign up your customers, get jobs built in, different proposal options, and even record videos and upload presentations so that the whole sales process is completely online. And when you send it off to the customer, they can leave live feedback in the software and accept the proposal and even pay online, either upfront or on a monthly basis or whatever system that you want. So think about, how do your customers actually want to be engaged with you? Same goes for the onboarding process. Process Street is an amazing company that does checklists and forms and allows you to create a fully automated process of grabbing information either from a customer or a supplier or even for internal use. So how amazing would it be is if the next time you onboarded a new customer, you had a process in place where you could just send them a link And the form itself would walk them through the process of providing all the relevant information that you need. And lastly here, loyalty. There are a myriad of loyalty products like Open Loyalty that have got open integrations with other software so that you can select how you want to build out the loyalty with your customer, whether that's giving them a reward based on a number of uses, or maybe they've been a client for 5 years or 6 years, 7 years, and you want to give them a specific reward for that. You build out the metrics, and a software like Open Loyalty will help you to customize it, send out the reminders, build in the reward or remuneration, whether that's a discount or you want to send a voucher or whatever it is, and automate that whole process for you. So it's going to remove all of the administration from these very, I guess there's no better way to say it, these are easy wins with your client in the sales area. So you can actually do things more efficiently for your own business and also please customers at the same time, which I'm hoping you're starting to see is the benefit of transformation. Lastly, I just want to touch on a couple of things here. One is that Loom is a great video recording software, and there are many on the market. So when you do want to communicate and collaborate with clients or internally within your teams, Loom is a great one because you can actually build out a video library and cut down on your time spent recording by a lot of time. The other is around appointment bookings. Square is a really good one to look at, both in the payment gateway space and also for businesses that require appointment booking or integration directly with payment on a website. If you're not doing these basic things already to improve productivity, there are many options available on the market that take less than an hour for you to get going, and you can be up and running. Lastly, it's around integration. So how do you capture information across this whole process so that you eliminate data duplication, double handling, manual entry? You're not chasing customers for information. They only have to provide it once. And there are a range of free or very cheaply priced integration software called Zapier or Tray.io, or there's a range of other ones. And when you purchase them, you're able to integrate all of this different software back to existing solutions that you would already have in your business and further automate and engage with customers. All right, I just want to wrap this up by encouraging you to draw your own line in the sand. So you don't have to let your past determine the future. If you want to be techie, you want to be digital, go and do it. No one's going to give you permission. Well, okay, except me, I'm giving you permission. Break down those functional areas in your business, as I showed you. Prioritize based on one key driver that you pick. Decide who's going to take ownership of the transformation. Agree on a minimum viable product to go to market with. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it could just be good enough. Implement your solution, and then track, review, change, and repeat using tools like Asana or a project management tool to work out what has worked best. I hope that these were at least opening your eyes up to a couple of really cheap, easy to implement solutions. And I might hand over to Pat to get some questions.
Okay, thanks, Laurel. That was terrific. Look, there's a lot of, or in fact, there's a number of questions coming through, but one of the ones that fascinates me and certainly is devotes a lot of, or creates a lot of conversation is that, and it does divide opinion, is the CEO and or the leadership team, do they need to be steeped in technology themselves in order to run into and execute a digital transformation program successfully?
That's a very good question. The answer is no. They don't have to be that person that has apps on their phone and is, constantly, at team meetings or at company updates referencing the latest technology for this to work. That's where I've outlined in the beginning, having a clear business case and picking that one key driver that you can reference back to so that you have that one-page business plan you can go back with and make it really clear to that stakeholder that they, whether it's the CEO or otherwise, that their business can't run without the solution that you're presenting to them. To make it really simple will help, but it's not required.
Yeah. One of the other trends, Laurel, that we see is that a lot of businesses put digital transformation programs in place in order to increase internal efficiency, drive down cost to deliver, and so on. And if you think of two industries that come to mind for me, banking and finance and the telco industry, they kind of forgot the customer on the way through. And for any of us who've sat on the phone being passed from one department to another, it's a sage reminder that you need to balance, and this is what this series of webinars is all about. Understand it from the customer perspective first, because it's great to drive costs down, but you can lose your customers on the way through. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think they go hand in hand. And what I was attempting to convey here is that if you can do this really effectively, you're actually solving both problems at the same time. So let's use that example because I think it's really visual. The one that I gave about leaving website feedback or creative design feedback online. If you can do that really effectively and make it super simple for your customer and solve that problem, and it's also going to streamline the operational side of things for yourself because it's all done completely online. So it's really just a matter of selecting the right tool in order to do that and making sure that that selection process is at least has a little bit of thought into it, which is where I think in larger transformations that gets lost because they're not connecting the dots as closely. But rapid digital transformation, you're not going to be doing it for very long. You're going to focus on one thing and go to the next.
Sure. Laurel, one of the other areas you did touch on during your presentation was the importance of getting buy-in across the organisation before you implement a program. What are your thoughts on how best to achieve that?
Ooh, I feel like I should be asking you that question, Pat. What are things that you, as a director in a big business, look out for?
Yeah. Well, what one needs to assume that you've got to get buy-in, you've got to involve people. We talk about technical decision makers, but also the business users. One of the big areas that's a common fail, again, on digital transformation programs is, if the tech's driving the business outcome without business input or indeed user input from the affected groups, you tend not to get a less than optimal outcome. And there have been, plenty of well-documented examples of that over the years. Look, one of the other questions that's come through, this is an excellent one. What happens if a customer requires human interface, i.e. like a telephone call, in order to finalise an order they want to place with you? How would you manage that end of the process? And I guess maybe you get into areas like artificial intelligence.
Yes. And that's a good question. That's very specific. Yes, you would have a look at different robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, and digital transformation, I guess, is underpinned by all of these technologies that are taking place. One thing that I didn't touch on here. And yeah, that's where you'd have to take a look, I guess, at the integration side of things and how you would integrate it back to an existing platform, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah, I'm imagining in this case, it's a sort of a complex end of chain exercise, but certainly the technology is improving in those areas. And, we see the incidence of bots now. In fact, in our business at RSM, we're using taxation bots that we're trialling now so that we can get better outcomes for clients and indeed for our own people. So the technology is moving pretty fast. Another question that again is fairly topical is it's such a wide field, but what sort of money would a business need to spend or invest on average in order to get themselves up to a benchmark position from a digitalisation perspective?
That's a good question. I guess I probably would clarify and say that any of the solutions that I've shared here, I would look at them as independent rapid transformation projects that you could pick up. So none of the solutions I'm sharing here are like going to be probably absolutely critical to your business process. It sounds like what you're talking about, Pat, is maybe doing a larger scale transformation where you want to benchmark your business's effectiveness against someone else in the industry. Is that right?
Yeah, I think certainly that's the case, isn't it, Laurel? And then you go to, you've got this wide smorgasbord of options, and you're looking at some of your diagrams today. There's an awful lot of things you can do, but one of the things we do know from business transformation, anecdotal and empirical evidence, is you don't get a good outcome if you try and tackle too much at once. So that being the case, where would I start first if I'm a business owner? And let's assume I've got fairly rudimentary, maybe even some paper-based processes, like the particular client experience you referenced during your presentation, which was the wine wholesaler.
Yeah, look, I think you have to balance whether or not you go to the strategy level or you go straight to the implementation level. So what I'm doing my best to say here is that don't be afraid to go and jump in and implement. If you've got an idea, go for it. But if you have got a bit more time and you are interested in benchmarking where your business can sit, then you would want to sit more at the strategy level and get some advice on the entire ecosystem of your business, where it is now, where you sit on that cloud technology adoption curve. And then you would get the business requirements across all of those functional areas done correctly. That means interviews with stakeholders across all the areas doing the actual work, as well as interviews with people running the business. And that can be, you asked about cost before, that type of engagement is, in the tens of thousands of dollars, usually, in order to get all that information collated and get some advice as well about what the future state would look like.
Laurel, so working through a process, if I'm an SME owner and I'm looking to improve the way I relate to clients and again, develop some internal efficiencies on the back of that, how long would I expect, if I got some people in to help me to do that, how long would I expect it to take to get a reasonable outcome in terms of efficiency and digital technology baked into my business?
Well, I think if you wanted to use an external provider, it can actually work out to be cheaper in some ways and more time effective. So apart from the initial strategy, you would get someone to come in at key intervals. So beginning of the project, end of the project. And I'm just trying to think of a realistic example here. Probably what I'm meaning to say is that you would work on a project basis rather than having them engaged throughout the process all the way through.
Sure.
So how much time, I guess, it might be a few hours a month, or it might be an hour or two a week. Some of our consultants, they just are involved with the business regularly, like the winery client that I mentioned, or we might touch base with them, once a fortnight and see what training opportunities and other software comes up.
Yeah, terrific. And just in closing, Laurel, how important do you think having some experience working with clients in a particular industry or vector, how important is that?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think it's always good to have one subject matter expert as part of the team, especially if you're working with a consultant who can understand your industry, and then you avoid having to do any of those cumbersome explanations of this terminology or this acronym means that. But I also think that in this best of breed software space that I've shared with you, there are so many solutions that cross industries and can be used for alternate purposes that you wouldn't normally think to apply, that it can also be good to have an external person who is maybe more of a generalist or has worked in other industries as well to provide a different perspective.
Yeah, terrific. Laurel, look, thanks so much for your time today. It's been invaluable, and as we conclude our four-part Symposium series, I think we can all agree that certainly when it comes to customer experience, our central Symposium tenet, which was basically that good enough is not good enough anymore because the world's changing, and so that tenet is now incontestable. We've all seen evidence of that, in the last 6 months, and the reality of the way we operate has changed enormously. It's not straightforward, and focusing on customers means that you've got to take the time, as you've said today, Laurel, to understand their needs, and they do change, and work assiduously on getting customer excellence. You've got to bake it in as part of your culture. Otherwise, you run the risk of being overtaken by your competitors. So the logic is, if we do it and we do it well, we'll achieve a competitive advantage, and it'll help us with sustainable growth. Now, the 3 previous webinars, they are available on our website, and they were conducted by Katja Forbes, Kim Sealing-Smith, and Daryl Hardage. And having looked at those myself, I know you have, Laurel, they're all specialists in their respective segments. And I definitely encourage the viewers today to check out that material that they've each presented, because it's been first class. When you leave us today, I'll just ask you, we'd be most grateful if you took just a minute to fill out a 1-minute survey. That enables us to help frame up our future presentations. So we'd be enormously grateful if you would do that as you're departing today. I'm pleased to note also that we are on time. So that's great. And we appreciate very much all of you who did attend today. So thank you once again on behalf of RSM Sydney. Goodbye.